Everyone in the Cooper family had a role. Sheldon was the genius. Missy was the normal one. Mary was the believer. George was the tired father trying to keep everything together. And then there was Georgie. For most of young Sheldon, Georgie is treated like the least impressive Cooper. He is not academic, he is not gifted, he is not some future scientist with a Nobel Prize waiting for him. He struggles in school, makes impulsive decisions, gets himself into trouble, and constantly lives in Sheldon's shadow. But the funny thing is, by the time we see Georgie as an adult in The Big Bang Theory, he is not some failure. He is not some washed-up older brother who never figured life out. He is a successful businessman. He owns Dr. Tire, a major tire business in Texas, and he is doing well enough that he has become one of the most financially successful people in the entire Cooper family. The Big Bang Theory establishes Georgie as the owner of Dr. Tire, and later storylines around Georgie and Mandy's first marriage show the early business path that leads him closer to that future. And that changes the way you look at him completely. Because Georgie Cooper was never stupid, he was just smart in a way his family did not always respect. Sheldon's intelligence is obvious. It announces itself in every conversation. He knows facts, theories, equations, historical details, scientific principles, and academic concepts that most people around him cannot even begin to understand. Georgie's intelligence is different. He understands people. He understands opportunity. He understands confidence, pressure, timing, risk, and money. He knows when someone can be persuaded. He knows how to talk his way into a room. He knows how to survive embarrassment, rejection, and failure without letting it destroy him. That might not get you a perfect report card, but in the real world, it can build a business. From the beginning, Georgie is shown as someone who wants more. Not in a pretentious way, and not even in a particularly organized way, but he has ambition. He does not want to spend his whole life being treated like the dumb older brother of a genius. He wants money. He wants independence. He wants respect. And what makes Georgie interesting is that he starts chasing those things before he fully understands what they cost. In young Sheldon, a lot of his early hustles are played for comedy. He is trying to make a quick buck. He is chasing girls. He is overconfident. He thinks he knows more than he does. But underneath the comedy, the show is quietly building the foundation of the person he becomes. Georgie is learning sales. He is learning how people think. He is learning that confidence can open doors. He is learning that money is not just something adults magically have, but something you can chase, lose, negotiate, and build around. He makes mistakes, obviously, a lot of them. But unlike Sheldon, Georgie's growth does not come from being the smartest person in the room. It comes from being willing to stay in the room after he looks stupid. That is one of his most underrated traits. Georgie can fail and keep going. A lot of people with more academic intelligence than Georgie would collapse under the kind of pressure he faces. He becomes a father young. He enters an adult relationship before he is emotionally ready. He has to deal with Mandy's family, his own family, money problems, responsibility, grief, and the shadow of George's death. And through all of that, he does not get to stay a kid. That is the real turning point in Georgie's story. Because early Georgie wants success because he wants status. He wants to prove people wrong. He wants to be seen as a man. He wants the respect that he never really gets inside his own family. But later, Georgie needs success because people are depending on him. That is a massive difference. When someone is chasing money for ego, they can quit when it gets hard. But when someone is chasing stability for their family, they become much harder to break. And that is what makes his future as Dr. Tire feel believable. Georgie does not become successful because the show suddenly decides to make him a genius. He becomes successful because all of his flaws slowly get redirected into strengths. His confidence becomes salesmanship. His stubbornness becomes persistence. His impulsiveness becomes risk-taking. His need for respect becomes ambition. His survival instinct becomes business sense. And his lack of academic success forces him to build a life in a completely different arena. That is why the tire business is actually perfect for Georgie. It is not glamorous. It is not intellectual in the Sheldon Cooper sense. It is not a world of universities, laboratories, Nobel Prizes, or theoretical physics. It is practical, local, blue-collar, people-driven. It is exactly the kind of business where Georgie's strengths would matter. You need to talk to customers. You need to manage employees. You need to understand inventory, pricing, trust, timing, service, reputation, and expansion. You need to be tough enough to handle angry people, smart enough to spot opportunity, and confident enough to sell someone on choosing you instead of the shop down the street. That is Georgie. He might not be able to explain string theory, but he can probably convince a stranger they need 4 new tires and custom rims before lunch. And that is not a small thing. One of the biggest themes in Georgie's character is that intelligence is not one thing. Young Sheldon constantly shows the difference between being smart in school and being smart in life. Sheldon is brilliant, but he often needs the world explained to him emotionally. He does not read people well. He struggles with tone, timing, empathy, and social consequences. His intelligence is extraordinary, but it is also narrow. Georgie's intelligence is messier but broader. He knows when someone is mad. He knows when someone is lying. He knows when someone wants to be flattered. He knows when to push, when to charm, when to apologize, and when to walk away. And the older he gets, the more valuable that becomes. That is why Georgie's success is not random. It is the payoff to a character arc that was there the whole time. The tragedy is that most of his family does not fully see it. Because in a house with Sheldon Cooper, intelligence has a very specific meaning. Good grades, big vocabulary, scientific knowledge, academic achievement. Georgie does not fit that definition, so he gets underestimated. But being underestimated becomes part of his fuel. He spends so much of his life being compared to Sheldon that he eventually has to build a life where the comparison does not matter anymore. He cannot beat Sheldon at being Sheldon. So he becomes something Sheldon could never be: a businessman, a salesman, a provider, a person who understands the everyday world better than the genius ever could. And that is what makes Georgie's adult success so satisfying. He does not become Dr. Tire because he suddenly escapes who he was. He becomes Dr. Tire because of who he always was. The kid who wanted money becomes the man who understands business. The teenager who wanted respect becomes the adult who earns it. The brother who was treated like the dumb one becomes the Cooper who proves that success does not always look like a diploma on the wall. And when you look back at the Big Bang Theory, Georgie's reunion with Sheldon hits harder because of this. Sheldon remembers his childhood through his own pain. He remembers being picked on. He remembers Georgie as the older brother who made things harder. But Georgie remembers something else. He remembers having to grow up. He remembers carrying responsibilities Sheldon never noticed. He remembers watching the family struggle after their father died. He remembers being the one who had to become stronger while Sheldon got to leave, study, and become a genius somewhere else. That does not make Sheldon evil, it just shows how different their childhoods were. Sheldon was protected by his intelligence. Georgie was shaped by responsibility. And in the end, Georgie's success becomes a quiet kind of revenge. Not against Sheldon personally, but against the idea that he was never going to amount to anything. Because he did amount to something. He built a business. He made money. He became respected. He created a name for himself outside of being Sheldon Cooper's brother. And maybe that is the most important part. Georgie Cooper did not become successful by becoming more like Sheldon. He became successful by becoming more like Georgie. That is why his story works. It is not about a hidden genius suddenly being revealed. It is about a different kind of intelligence finally being recognized. Georgie was never the smartest Cooper on paper, but he might have been the one most built for the real world. And That is how the kid everyone underestimated became Dr. Tire. Not through luck, not through school, not through genius, through confidence, failure, pressure, responsibility, and the one skill Sheldon never really mastered, knowing how people work.